7 o'clock on Thursday, January 9th, year 2020. This is the regular Board of Education meeting for the Bellbrook Sugarcreek schools. This meeting is a meeting of the Bellbrook Sugarcreek Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting school district business. It is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is time for public participation during the meeting, as is indicated on the agenda. Can you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I, Karen Long, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as member of the Board of Education in and for the said Bellbrook Sugarcreek School District, Greene County, Ohio, to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office and until my successor is chosen and qualified. Thank you.
Mr. Carpenter, if you would do likewise.
Thank you. I, David Carpenter, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge my duties as a member of the Board of Education in and for the Bellbrook Sugarcreek School District, Greene County, Ohio, to the best of my ability and in accordance with the laws now in effect and hereafter to be enacted during my continuance in said office and until my successor is chosen and qualified. All right, Mr. Lang, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Carpenter?
Here.
Mrs. France?
Here.
Mrs. Long?
Here.
Mr. Price is absent. And Mrs. Sloughman?
Here.
Do we have a motion to accept I need a recommendation for approval of acceptance of the resignation of the school board member Kathy Kingston effective December 23rd, 2019.
So moved.
Is there a second? I'd like to read the letter that she sent to the district. She says, I, Kathy Kingston, am submitting my official resignation from the Bellbrook Sugarcreek Board of Education. I am grateful for your patience as I have been focused on healing during my absence. Unfortunately, my progress has been slower than I had hoped. I feel at this time it would be within the best interest of the district to find a suitable replacement for my position. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve our community over the years as a teacher and as a board member. I am confident the administration, staff, and students will continue the tradition of excellence established in Bellbrook Sugarcreek schools. Respectfully, Kathy Kingston, and it is dated Monday, December 23rd, 2019. I'd also like to comment briefly. Kathy Kingston served on this board for more than 13 years before having a major medical event at the end of April 2019. I'm happy to report that she is now able to be away from constant medical care and continue her recovery at a family member's home. We thank her for her voluntary resignation so that the school board can appoint a replacement for the remainder of her term. Is there any discussion from other board members? All right, Kevin, please call the roll.
Okay, Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Motion passes. The next is the appointment of a new board member. whereas a vacancy has been caused on the Board of Education by reason of resignation, and whereas this Board of Education has the legal authority to fill a vacancy for the unexpired term thereof, now therefore be it resolved by a majority vote of all remaining members of the Board of Education of the Bellbrook Sugarcreek School District that Kevin Price be and hereby is appointed to serve as a member of the Board of Education of this school district for the unexpired term of Kathy Kingston ending on December 31st, 2021. We have a motion to accept that resolution.
So moved.
Mrs. Sloughman, second.
So moved.
Karen. I'd like to comment a little bit on the replacement process before we vote. On December 23rd, we received Kathy Kingston's resignation, and on December 24th, then we announced that we would be accepting candidates for the replacement position and accepting applications and letters of request through January 2nd. We received 13 qualified applications. The last one about 11 p.m. on January 2nd. There was one application that we could not accept because the person was not a registered voter in our district, and 3 applications we could not accept because they arrived after the deadline. We had 13 qualified candidates. We interviewed those candidates on Monday and on Tuesday in open meetings that were formally announced. We had a formal call to order. We had the Pledge of Allegiance. We had the roll call. We had a motion to go into executive session, and a second for that, and a roll call vote on going into executive session. And then from there, we invited individuals in for interviews during the executive session. We finished each of those sessions just before 10 o'clock on Monday night, and somewhere between 10:30 and 11 on Tuesday night. So it was very thorough and enjoyable in a lot of cases, although it was extremely tiring by the time we were all through it. My comment on the nomination is that Mr. Price has the traits and business experience that will help us continue to be successful and can represent the perspective of military families in our district. He was also a very strong candidate in our most recent election, and I believe that he will be a real asset to the board. Other board members have any comments or questions? All right, hearing none, Mr. Lyman, would you call the roll?
Yes. Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman, Mr. Carpenter.
Yes. We would, if Mr. Price was here, be able to swear him in. He is on a business trip and out of state right now. So we will swear him in as a member of the board at our next opportunity, that we are in either a regular or a special meeting. All right, moving on to the election of officers. Do we have any nominations for president?
I nominate David Carpenter.
Are there any other nominations? All right, do we have, would someone like to move that we close the nominations for the office of president?
So moved.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Second.
Mrs. France? Mr. Lyman, call the roll on closing the nominations.
Okay. Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman.
Yes.
All right, Mr. Lyman, would you call the roll then for voting for president?
Yes, and since there's only one nomination, you can just say yes for Carpenter or no or abstain. 3 options on this. Okay. Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Abstain?
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long.
Yes.
Motion is, Mr. Carpenter is approved. It's funny to talk to about yourself in the third person. All right, for vice president, do we have nominations for vice president? And I would like to nominate Mrs. Sloughman. Are there any other nominations? All right, do we have a motion to close the nominations for vice president?
So moved.
Mrs. France? And a second?
So moved.
Mrs. Long? Mr. Lamming, please call the roll on closing the nominations.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Abstain.
All right, now please call the roll for vice president. Similarly, it would be either to say Mrs. Sloughman or yes, if you would like to have Mrs. Sloughman, or no, or abstain.
Right. Okay, Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Abstain.
And Mr. Carpenter?
Yes. And Mrs. Sloughman is now vice president. All right. We've gotten through some of the tricky stuff now. We can go on easily. The good news recognition, I will spend a moment to go through that, and Dr. Kozat, I'll turn it over to you.
Yep, so January is School Board Recognition Month, so I would just like to say a huge thank you to our board members and our new board member and our new board member that's not here also. Really being a board member is a very challenging and sometimes thankless job. And so I would just like to say on behalf of myself, the administration, the teachers, the staff, and the community, thank you very much for all the hard work and dedication and time and effort that you give to our students and our community. You really do have the best interest of our students and our community in mind. You spend countless hours dedicating to our district. So again, thank you very much, and I have a certificate of appreciation here. So Mr. Carpenter,
Thank you, sir.
thank you very much. Mrs. France, thank you very much. Mrs. Long, thank you very much. And Mrs. Sloughman, thank you very much.
Moving on into our reorganizational meeting. We have a motion to establish a service fund to be established in the amount of $4,000 for fiscal year 2020 for the purpose of board member professional meeting expenses as permitted by Ohio Revised Code 3315.15. The fiscal year 2020 rate was set at $4,000 as well.
I'll make the motion that it's fiscal year 2021.
Or did I say it wrong?
Yeah, that's
Oh,
the first number.
so sorry. Thank you.
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman? Any questions, comments on the motion as amended appropriately? Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes,
Mrs. France?
Yes.
motion passes. We have a motion to appoint the superintendent of schools as representative for federal programs and recommend authorizing the superintendent to file applications for federal programs and educational grants and to appoint representatives to complete all forms and evaluations required by the programs and/or grants. A motion?
So moved.
Mrs. France?
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman? Is there any question? This is like previous years. In fact, the vast majority of our reorganizational meeting items are like prior years. Okay, go ahead and call the roll.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes,
Mrs. France?
Yes.
And Mrs. Long?
Yes.
motion passes. And that says that you take this one.
Yes, I can do this one. On number 11, there are a lot of items there under number 11 that we're approving that are annual approvals. If any of those you need further information on, let me know, or let's discuss it now, because some of these are, for instance, the one I want to bring up, just because it's quite often misunderstood, is the one that says authorize the treasurer to secure advances, the first one there, on property tax money as people pay their property tax bills to the county treasurer. We are allowed to receive a portion of that money, so we draw on it as it is paid, rather than waiting 2 months till we get our actual settlement from the time the tax bills are mailed out. So that's just authorizing me to get the money in advance. So could I get a motion to approve number 11?
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Long?
Anyone have any questions on any of that?
I have no questions. Mrs. Hoffman? Mrs. France? Mrs. Long? No. Okay, you may call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Recommend the incumbent president serve as president pro tem at the annual organizational meeting in January 2021 until duly reappointed by associate board members or replaced by a duly elected successor at the annual reorganizational meeting. We have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Lofton and Mrs. France. Any questions? Comments? All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
And Mr. Carpenter?
Yes. And number 13, we have a motion to approve the membership and appointment of board members to the following positions. And they are listed there. We have a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Long?
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman? I'd like to comment that since Mr. Price is not here to participate in kind of deciding which role each of us would assume, I'd like to recommend that we make express some interest in different items if you have an interest in things at this point in time, and that we then defer making a decision on this until our next meeting. So, do we have anyone who would like to do the student achievement liaison spot? Interested? Okay, Mrs. Sloughman and Mrs. France are both interested.
That's what they should.
Okay.
No.
You know, arm wrestle, yeah. The OSB Capital Conference delegate, I'd be happy to do that unless somebody else wants to. The Capital Conference alternate. Anyone interested? Okay. The representative to the BSEF. They're interested there.
Health.
I do not know.
A couple times, yeah, probably 4 times a year.
Okay, Mary? Representative Financial Advisory Committee, any interest? We'll ask Kevin about that. Okay. Representative of the Bellbrook Sugarcreek School Safety Committee, and based on Mr. Price's interview, he was interested in that. And then a representative to the Greene County ESC Business Advisory Council. You have any interest? Or maybe, or might you be interested? Okay.
Express interest in alternate.
Karen.
Karen, okay.
All right, so,
The top legislative liaison that's kind of stuck in that top.
oh, I'm sorry, yeah. The legislative liaison, which is on the top of the list. Is there a person who's expressed an interest in that at this point? Yeah, we'll need to have that.
Finish this up.
Yeah. All right, then, I would move that we table this decision until, another meeting. We have a second on tabling the motion. Karen? So would you call the roll on the question of tabling the decision?
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France.
Yes.
Okay. So we will address that at another meeting to finalize those selections. Number 14, recommend the approval of using a facsimile signature on for the treasurer on checks. Let me say that again. We recommend the approval of using a facsimile signature of the treasurer on checks.
So moved.
Is there-
Second.
Thank you. Mrs. France and Mrs. Sloughman.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long.
Yes.
Motion passes. Number 15, recommend the adoption of the resolution to waive the reading of the record of the proceedings of the previous minutes in accordance with section 3313.26 of the Ohio Revised Code. Mrs. Sloughman,
Second.
Mrs. Long? Any questions or comments on that? It means that we don't read all the minutes at the beginning of every meeting of what that happened at the last meeting. Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman.
Yes.
Motion passes. And number 16, recommend the authorization for the district's continuation of membership in the Southwestern Ohio Educational Purchasing Cooperative and the Ohio Purchasing Cooperative Program, and hereby approve the payment of all applicable membership fees.
So moved.
Mrs. France?
Second.
Mrs. Long? This is an area where we are able to purchase a variety of our services and supplies, mostly supplies, I think, at a reduced rate because we are in a cooperation with a variety of other school districts. So financially, it's a good deal for us to be able to do this. Probably stepping all over your comments, so I apologize.
I was just gonna say, the big ticket items we purchase cooperatively with about 100 other school districts is purchase of school buses or medical insurance, classroom supplies, just off the top of my head, a variety of items. You need maintenance supplies or library books or media, that kind of thing, so we save far more than the membership fees.
Are there any other questions or comments? All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes. All right, that completes our reorganizational meeting segment. And we are now able to go into our regular meeting. So, Mr. Lyman, we'll go to you for the treasurer's report.
Okay. Could I get a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held December 12th?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman and Mrs. France.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
and Mrs. France.
Yes.
Could I get a motion to approve the treasurer's report for the month of December 2019 as included with the agenda?
So moved.
Mrs. Sloughman, second, Mr. Carpenter.
Just wanted to review a couple things as I do each meeting.
Sorry to interrupt, Kevin. Is that on the other document up there?
Dave, can you turn it's the other, on the other document, I think is this sheet.
You scroll down.
No, go the other way. No, other way. Other way. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's fine.
There we go. Good.
Thank you.
Good. Let me make sure we have the right document here, that's the. blue section of your agenda, the third blue page, second sheet, I guess.
Okay. That's it.
Right, that's the one that's being projected there. You can see on this one, what percentage of our total budget is received. Since we're at the halfway point of the fiscal year, December 31st is 6 months out of 12 have been established. So we see real estate taxes at this point represent 63% of our entire revenue. And the state foundation is only 23%. The reason we always say 27% is that part of that next one, that 8%, state and federal assistance, part of that is also state funding. So we have about 27% of our budget received from the state, 63 from real estate tax, and the rest is tuition, investment earnings, and other miscellaneous items. And then the expenditures, we scroll on down to those, we have salaries and wages. You can see the percentages for employee retirement is mandated by the state, and medical insurance, and all those other items there. And then I always include pie charts with the information I just gave you if you are more of a geometrical, learner or something like that. And then on the last page is a spreadsheet for like the last 20 years of general fund balances at the end of each month, so we can see the trends. As expected, the last, for December, if you look at that last column, the last 3 years have decreased. And usually the leanest months are around December or January. So, and I've got other items there that were included also, but any questions about anything?
Any questions? Long, straight. Mrs. Loughlin? Please call the roll.
Okay. Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Can I get a motion to approve the tax budget as reviewed during the budget hearing prior to this meeting?
So moved.
Mrs. France?
Second.
Mrs. Loughlin? Are there any other questions from the tax budget, Mike?
I just wanted to state that, I stated this in the budget hearing, but for those who weren't here, we have been contacted by the Ohio Department of Education that because our 5-year forecast is showing a red balance in the 3rd year of the forecast, that there are some items we need to gather and submit to the Ohio Department of Education about what we feel we need to do from here on out to alleviate that problem. So just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and the last one that I have is that I need a motion to approve a then and now certificate in the amount of $3,965.54 to Scholastic for the Stephen Bell Elementary Book Fair. We got the invoice before we created the purchase order, but it's not a general fund expenditure, and it's something we do every year.
So moved.
Mrs. Long?
Second.
Mrs. France?
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes. Going on to item number 18, correspondence. The board members did get a letter from Parker Wright, and I did respond to that letter during the month, and we'll be corresponding with him again. Is there any other correspondence? All right. All right, we'll hear a report now to the board from Rob Schultz. Thank you, sir.
My name is Rob Schultz. I teach computer science at Bellbrook High School. I've been a member of the Math and Computer computer science department. Wow, it's been 20 years. When I was hired 20 years ago, I was hired to teach half-day math and half-day computer science, and at the time our computer science program consisted of keyboarding, intro to Microsoft Office, and intro to web design, all of which are very important classes, but none of which are really computer science classes. They're more business applications. So the next year we started our first actual computer science class, AP Computer Science A, which has kind of been the foundational class that we've had since then. But over the next, following 19 years, we've added some more courses, and at this point today, we have 5 really good quality, solid computer science courses. We have 2 semester-long intro courses that are our intro courses. We have Intro to Computer Science Principles and Intro to Java Programming. At the other end of the spectrum, we now have 2 AP Computer Science courses. We have AP Computer Science A, which is the longest running course in our computer science program. And 5 years ago, we added AP Computer Science Principles. That's College Board's newest AP course. And then somewhere in the middle, we have a year-long course. It's an entry-level course for students that want to get a little background in programming, but they aren't necessarily ready for, or they don't want the rigor quite yet of an AP curriculum. And that's our Game Development and Multimedia Programming course. To give you a little bit of information about the Game Development course, like I said, it's for students that have, it's an entry-level course, so it's for students that have no programming experience. We basically cover on just the basic building blocks of writing computer programs, but then we review those and we recover those and recover those in a variety of different programming languages. So we start out, the first semester is the Game Development portion. We use little Sphero and Ollie robots that were purchased with a grant from BSEF. We use Alice, which is a language out of Carnegie Mellon University. We use Scratch. And once we go into second semester, that's when we get into the multimedia programming part. So we use a programming language called Python. We use it to create music, and we use it to create picture filters and a lot of really cool stuff. But just, again, the basic building blocks. Probably the biggest complaint I get from our students is that we don't have anything to offer after our AP courses. It's not uncommon, even with 2 APs, that we'll have a student that'll take our AP course, one of them maybe as a sophomore, one as a junior, and then we really don't have much left as seniors. So that's something I've been kind of thinking about for the past few years, is what we could do to offer. And then last year, I had 6 of my AP students call me out on that. I had 6 students who were in either one or the other or both of my AP courses. 3 of them are planning to go on next year and major in computer science. 2 of them are going on to major in engineering, and the third, I don't recall the exact major, but it's a STEM-related field, and they said that they wanted another computer science course, so they signed up for our Game Development Multimedia Programming course, and I explained to them that they are far beyond what we do in that course. They said it didn't matter. They wanted something. So I was trying to figure out what to do with that course. Well, then another opportunity came up. Last spring, I received an invitation from College Board to apply to attend the first annual 100 Teacher Summit for AP Computer Science A, and it was held in California, in Menlo Park at Facebook's headquarters. I applied. One of the questions was for teachers who had been teaching more than 10 years was, if willing to present, would you present, and what topics? So I listed a half a dozen topics that I would be interested in presenting, and I was selected. So I had the opportunity. I know this is kind of a tangent from where I was a second ago, but it'll circle back around here in a second. I had an opportunity to go to Facebook's headquarters. College Board covered all of the expenses. It was an amazing trip. We were there for 3 days. It was constant presentations. We toured Facebook's headquarters. We had presentations. There were 100 teachers that were invited. 85 of them were new teachers. 15 of us were considered master teachers and were asked to present. So the other 14 presentations were phenomenal. People that I've worked with in the past through different committees and things. People that probably won't mean, the names won't mean much to the people in the room, but to a computer science teacher, these are the rock stars. So to be able to go on stage and share a stage with them and present, it was just a career highlight. It was a phenomenal experience. We also had several presentations from some Facebook employees. There was a person from the data analytics department, there was someone from the app development department, but probably the most beneficial presentation that I heard while I was there, we had an open panel discussion with 5 college interns who were serving an internship with Facebook. And this is where I started developing the idea of what I was going to do with these 6 kids in my game development class. They described their experience. They said that on their first day they were put into collaborative teams. They were going to be working with this team through the entire summer. They were to brainstorm and present an idea for a brand new original Facebook app. They had to develop the app. They had to get it. They presented and proposed it and had to get it approved. Then they had to develop the app. And then at the end, they were to present the result to a panel of Facebook executives, which sounded like an amazing experience to a high school computer science teacher. Well, one of the teachers of the 100 that was there asked these students, what should we as teachers be doing to better prepare our kids for an opportunity like the one you have? And they all agreed unanimously that when they came into that position, they were pretty solid with their computer science skills and the programming skills, but they weren't ready for any of the other things. They weren't ready to work collaboratively. They had done a couple of partner projects here and there, but nothing as large scale as what they were assigned to do. They weren't prepared to do presentations and proposals. They weren't prepared to learn a new programming environment without the safety net of a professor or a lab aide. And they were most terrified. That the point we talked to them is when they were preparing to do this presentation to the Facebook executives, and they were terrified about that because they had no idea who was going to be on the panel, how high level the executives were. One of them even said that he was afraid he was going to be sitting face to face with Mark Zuckerberg himself, and they were pretty terrified by that. So as I sat and listened to these kids, I thought about these 6 kids that were going to be in the game development class. So that is what these 6 kids have been doing in my game development class. They were kind of put in their own group on one side. So I've got my intro group. I now have my AP, my post-AP group. Their assignment, every assignment, is to work with at least a partner, if not a group of 3 or more. They have to develop and brainstorm a game idea. They have to present it to me as well as what their learning objectives are, what they're going to do to push themselves that they've never done before. I have to approve it, and then they get anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to develop the new game. Once they are finished, we hit the deadline, and on the deadline day, a panel comes into the room to listen to their presentation and ask questions. And they don't know who the panel is going to be until the panel walks into the room. There have been a couple of times, with the exception of the intro group that's kind of a captive audience. We've had Mr. Whalen, we've had Mr. Han, we've had several of our teachers. There was one presentation they did where it was our AP English Literature's entire AP English Lit class came in to serve on the panel. Their eyes got pretty big with that one. For the midterm exam, the panel was, forget somebody, it was Mr. Whalen, it was 2 of our guidance counselors, one of our teachers, one of my alums, a student that is now majoring in computer science that was home for Christmas break, and Dr. Kozad was gracious enough to come over and sit on the panel for that one. And they've done some really amazing things, okay? So I'm proud of what these kids are doing, and that kind of presented an opportunity for us to add another class to the books for next year. It won't require any additional cost, it won't require any additional man hours. In fact, I don't see it working any differently than it does this year. The kids that sign up to do the advanced game development course will be in the same room at the same time as the kids doing the regular game development course. They'll sit on one side, the other group will sit on the other side, and I'll just balance both at the same time. So we're talking about a pretty small clientele. Looking at my 2 current AP classes, we might have anywhere from 6 to 10 kids that would be eligible to do it if they choose to. So it's a pretty small group. It's very manageable, but it just gives them an opportunity to do something after AP if they take the AP courses as upperclassmen. And like I said, they're doing some amazing things, and things that rival some of the games that are actually out on the market right now. So, any questions for me?
Wow.
I just want to comment. When I was there on the panel, it was a farming game, so you had to plant these crops, and the sun would come up, and then the sun would go away, and everything else. So it was very well done by those students.
They're doing some very elaborate things. They're using a professional quality game development environment called Unity. Unity offers educational licenses to schools for free. And I would also like, since we're talking budgets and things, I would like to point out that I don't do anything in my class that's any cost to the students. All the software we use is free. The textbooks I find are free downloads. Anything we do, whether it be Alice, which comes, like I said, from Carnegie Mellon, I mean, all of those are things that are offered by universities as free downloads, so there's no extra cost for the kids. So Unity gave us 5 educational licenses, and that's what they're using, but the 3-dimensional graphics, I mean, the things these kids
students did a great job. They did a great job presenting it, great job getting organized. They were extremely organized in their presentation. You know, those soft skills that we always talk about that kids need, they have those soft skills to be able to present, answer questions, ask questions, and just had everything well planned out. And the game was obviously very impressive also. But, you know, just to comment on Mr. Schultz exemplifies the quality of teachers that we have in the school district and the dedication that he has and just the passion he has. So I really appreciate that.
One question.
Yeah.
We work on this a lot at the Career Center, making presentations, and we have kids present to the board meetings about projects they're doing. Is this tied in any way with any of the other courses at the high school?
It's not. We do have a little bit of overlap, some of our clientele, again, because some of our kids plan on going on into engineering, we do have some of the kids that do computer science overlap and do some of the engineering courses. So they kind of get both. And I think it works well when they do that. I've got several students in my AP Computer Science 8 course right now. They're doing an engineering course where they're programming robots. So a lot of the things we're doing applied back and forth, and it reinforces a lot of those skills. So for the ones that are going on into engineering or computer science, the more programming they can do and the different things they can do with it, the better off they're going to be when they get to college.
Yeah, I think doing presentations would be good for all
my
the
gosh.
kids.
Yeah.
because-
Yeah.
And this, I would agree, this ties right into our strategic plan, which is project-based learning, and part of that project-based learning is solving real-world problems, having authentic audience coming in and discussing and evaluating that, and allowing them to have those soft skills and practice those soft skills and be able to learn the information and then take it to the next level. So these are the kind of things that we do project-based learning. We had training last year at the beginning of the year, and that's part of the strategic plan. Definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now move into our open communication time. Mrs. Stockton, would you check to see if there's anybody signed in? Thank you. All right, Heidi Anderson.
So this is the monthly community concerns report, and I appreciate Dr. Kozad being willing to meet face-to-face to get these answered. I probably don't think that's the best format, just because I don't want any misrepresentation to go out. If I hear the answers, there could be some misrepresentation there. I want to make sure that the district is represented in these answers. So this is what I received for this month. I have copies for all of you if you'd like them.
Oh, thank you.
At the October board meeting, there was a mention of having Dr. Kozad's evaluation completed during the November board meeting, and we did not see that occur. So if we could get an update on the time frame, if that's already occurred, or if that will be put back on the agenda for then. The community continues to call for open work sessions. A community member would like to know if the school could plan some sort of town hall type meeting to run up to the levy. Another community member would like to know why there has not been more organized efforts in passing the levy, who is in charge of the levy campaign, and how they can get more information on how to volunteer. And I see that's in the agenda later, so I'll point that to that in the video. A community member would like to know where they can get more information on the functions of the board and the different types of meetings that you guys have. If there's a place on the website that I could direct them, you can let me know that on how the board functions. And then they also would like to know, a community member sent me a question about what the district's plan is should the levy fail, so they would like some information on it so they can make an informed judgment on that. A community member also wanted to know if the district's legal expenses are coming from general fund or if there's a litigation insurance. And the last thing is a community member sent me a compliment on the efforts of Mrs. Rivero and the National Honor Society during Christmas in the Park. Mrs. Rivero involved the entire community with the project, and it made downtown look beautiful, and the mom said that her kids especially enjoyed finding the milk jugs that they decorated.
Nice. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. superintendent's report.
New business, certified licensed employment, resignation, leave of absence, supplemental duty. Recommend acceptance of supplemental duty resignation from Zachary Huffman as girls varsity soccer coach effective December 26, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. France, Mrs. Sloughman?
And as he noted in his letter here, to spend more time with his family.
Nice. Perfectly understandable. Any other questions or comments? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Recommend approval of the following supplemental duty contract for the remainder of the 2019-20 school year. Andrew Hartley as the girls assistant lacrosse.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Long?
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman? Any question or comment? All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Be resolved, the Bellbrook Sugarcreek Board of Education has offered these supplemental duty positions via posting to licensed employees of the district. The board either had no qualified licensed employee applicants or no employees applied before these positions were offered to non-licensed persons. The following non-licensed persons have met qualifications for the board posting the supplemental duty positions as noted below. B, recommend approval of the following supplemental duty contracts for the 2019-20 school year. Jeff Chu, Karen Haviland, Malagros Larice, and Sarah Wall.
So moved.
Mrs. France?
Second.
Mrs. Long? Any questions, comments? All right, thank you. Can you call the roll?
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Recommend approval of the following supplemental duty volunteers for the 19-20 school year. Michael Balmer, Joseph Zach Klein, Steve Gretsch, Rob Hessinger, Robert McCain, and Bart Schenk.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Second.
Mrs. France?
I just want to compliment Mr. Odell. He does a very nice job of getting all these fine individuals to coach our teams. So he does a lot of hard work behind the scenes of making sure they have the proper licenses and people activity forms and all that good stuff. So I appreciate that.
All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. France,
Yes.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes. Motion passes.
Recommend approval of the following substitute teachers for the remainder of the 19-20 school year. Alexandra Beers and Lauren Walls.
So moved.
Mrs. Long?
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Again, this will be my monthly advertisement for substitute teachers. We are in need of substitute teachers. If you have a 4-year degree, you can call Mrs. Woody and we will get your application going and we will get you on the list. We will keep you busy. So there's really a high need. Again, there's not as many young people going into education. That number is decreasing and decreasing because of the challenges of being a teacher in education. And also STRS, which is the retirement system for teachers, has changed the retirement system that now you have to work to get full retirement to age 60 and at least 35 years. So in the past, it had been just 30 years, so you could retire. So someone could retire at 52, 53 from the system. And a lot of those people would come back and sub for 5, 6, 7 years, but it gets a little more challenging when you're 60. So the two ends there, there are a lot less folks, so it's really challenging to get substitute teachers.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter,
Yes.
Mrs. France.
Yes.
Motion passes.
B, support staff employment resignation leave of absence. Recommend approval of the following support staff limited contract for the remainder of the 19-20 school year. Roderick Brandon Adler, special needs assistant, classification number 6, step 0, 189, 189 days, 6.75 hours per day, effective January 6, 2020, and early authorized on that.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. France?
Second.
Mrs. Loughlin? Any questions or comments? Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes,
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
motion passes.
Bus driver physicals, request approval of the use of Doctors Urgent Care as a secondary provider for transportation department physicals, drug testing on an as-needed basis.
A motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Long?
Second.
Mrs. France? Any questions or comments? How frequently do bus drivers need physicals? Is that, sorry, I should have.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm sure it's on employment.
yeah, it's
and-
on appointment, that's on as-needed basis.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes,
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
motion passes.
Out-of-state travel, recommend approval of the following out-of-state travel. Middle school math pentathlon students, advisor Allison Visignani to Indianapolis, Indiana, April 18, 19, 2020, participation in the National Math Pentathlon Tournament. Cost of the district includes up to one substitute teacher for 1 day.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Long?
Second.
Mrs. Sloughman? Any questions? Math pentathlon is an excellent event.
This is just motion for the first item, right? Not being all the same.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. I love it.
Yes, I've been to a few of those with my son, and they're good times.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes, motion passes.
High school marching band in Indianapolis, Indiana, participate in Bands of America Grand National Championships, November 12th to the 14th, 2020. Cost of the district includes 2 substitute teachers for 2 days.
So moved.
Mrs. France, second, Mr. Carpenter. Any questions or comments? All right, please call the roll.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes,
Mrs. France?
Yes.
motion passes.
High school marching band, Orlando, Florida, perform at Walt Disney World, December 28, 2020 to January 2nd, 2021. No cost to the district.
Motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Second.
Mrs. France? This is an every 4-year type event.
Correct.
As I understand, yes.
Correct.
Still is, okay.
So students, fundraising and so forth to go on the trip, or to parents have to pay, so it's, but there's a lot of fundraising that can be done to be able to raise those funds.
Do you think the board members should supervise some of these trips?
Some.
We'll go to Florida.
I might be going to there as a parent, maybe, so, maybe, yes.
Maybe, there you go. All right, any other questions or comments? We'll bring a great perspective to the board, Mrs. Long, thank you very much. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes,
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
motion passes.
Transportation Coordinator Beverly Wetzel to Scottsdale, Arizona, April 22nd to 24th, 2020, to attend the School Bus Fleet Connects Conference. This is no cost to the district. All travel arrangements, hotel paid for by SBFX.
So moved.
Mrs. Long, Mrs. Sloughman?
Again, Mrs. Wetzel just does a fantastic job with our transportation. Extremely efficient and effective with our bus routes, just handles our transportation department, our mechanics, the whole special needs aides that are on the buses, just does a fantastic job, goes above and beyond for call duty.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes,
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
motion passes.
So, just want to put put these dates out there as possibilities and trying to see if everybody is good with these. Consideration of January 16th and January 30th, 2020 for special meeting dates, 7 p.m. on both those nights at Bellbrook Middle School. And we're still putting together the agenda for the 16th, also for the 30th, but I will say on the 30th, a part of that agenda is a performance audit from the Ohio Auditors team, so that will be at the January 30th meeting. Yep.
We do need a resolution to set those meetings.
All right, do we have a motion to set meeting dates, special meeting dates for January 16th and 30th at 7 p.m. at the Bellbrook Middle School?
So moved.
Mrs. Long,
Second.
Mrs. France. Thank you for sharing that information. Please call the roll.
Mrs. France?
Yes.
Mrs. Long?
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes. Motion passes.
All right, discussion of upcoming levy information meetings. Again, this is information about the levy. And actually, this information is on our website. We have a levy tab on our website. So some of the public meetings that we were having, we have multiple opportunities for community members to be able to ask questions, get answers. And some of those opportunities are coffee with the superintendent. So the first coffee with the superintendent is on January 16th. That's at Bellhop Cafe at 7:15 and 9:15 a.m. January 31st at Winans on Feedwire at 7:15 and 9:15 a.m. February 11th at Winans on Feedwire at 5 and 6:30 p.m. And again, this is all on the website on the levy information tab. So you're trying to write down those really fast. They're on the website. February 27th, Bellhop Cafe at 7:15 and 9:15 a.m. So again, the way the coffee with the superintendent work, it's really an informal kind of situation. I'll just talk for a few minutes and then really it's question and answers, okay? Two other opportunities, we will have two community meetings. February 3rd will be a combination. David Graham will be presenting for half of the time. He'll be talking about the real estate tax pieces of it. And then the second half of it will be school representatives will be presenting a little bit of information about the levy, and then there'll be a question answer part of that. So that's on the 3rd. And then February 17th is just school representatives, again, presenting information about the levy, and then being able to answer questions. We will be getting there's two ways to be able to ask questions. We'll be getting a link out that if you want to ask a question, we'll be posting that on the website of what the link is, so you can ask the question there, or if you come, we'll do the old 3x5 cards. You can put your question on the 3x5 card, and we'll answer those questions for you. Also want to note on February 3rd and 17th, the folks that are coordinating those meetings with the Dayton Mediation Center, the same group that coordinated the school board, it really wasn't a debate, asked the candidate back in, late October or so. So the Dayton Mediation Group will be facilitating both of those meetings on the 3rd and the 17th. So there'll be multiple opportunities for folks to be able to ask questions. And a third option also is you can give me a call. You can give Mr. Lyman a call, and give a board member a call, give us an email. We'll sit down with you. I just met with somebody. Well, they just left. They left a few minutes ago. Sat down with somebody earlier in the week that had some questions. We sat down and talked. You know, it's really school funding and levies can get complicated really fast. A lot of the times, 99% of the times, it's much better to sit down and just talk back and forth, because something that I might say or Mr. Lyman might say might spur a question or need further explanation. So a lot of times it's much better to kind of sit down and be able to go back and forth on those. So those are the opportunities. The other pieces are we are having in-home coffee and chats. So we have some community members that have signed up for those, and they'll have about 10 or 15, they'll invite 10 or 15 people to their house, and Mr. Liming and I and a board member will come, and same kind of format. We'll present information about the levy, and then you can ask questions about the levy. So again, hindsight being 2020, feedback from the last levy was we didn't do a good enough job of communicating with our community. We now have at least 6 opportunities in a public way for people to be able to ask questions and to get answers about that. Okay? And I encourage you to attend one of those. The coffee superintendent. We had probably 10 or 11 at the beginning, and when we started in July, we had about 2 a month through November, and there were 10 or 11 at the beginning, and at the end there were 1 or 2, and there were the same 1 or 2 people, which that's fine as 1 or 2 people, but those are really informal opportunities for people to be able to ask questions. It just doesn't have to be about the levy; it can be about anything. Real informal. The coffee with the superintendent, real informal. The other meetings are about the levy. Yeah, and then I have a number 3 here. Sure. So just to provide some information about the levy, again, you can never hear enough about the levy, about the facts, because again, it takes 7, 8, 9, 10 times for folks to be able to digest that information. We have a 5.7 mil operating levy on the ballot. The last time we passed a levy was in 2015. Again, we only received 27% of our funding from the state compared to the state average of 44%. Like I mentioned earlier, I think it was during the budget hearings today, and previous board meetings, we made about $2.3 million in budget reductions between the summer of 2018 and all the way through next year. If passed, the levy would cost district taxpayers $1,660 per $100,000 house per month. So an important key to that is also just to let you know, voter registration ends on February 18th. So you can't express your opinion through the ballot box without being registered to vote. So make sure you get out registered to vote. Again, voting information is on our website in the levy tab, or you can go to Greene County Elections. It's there also. Those forms are also in each of our buildings, the voter registration forms. Early voting starts on February 19th, and election day is March 17th. Again, so the reason why we need this levy, obviously, is the financial situation that we're in, and to fund the day-to-day operations of our district. Find teachers and staff like Mr. Schultz there, who really are the integral part of our district, and really came out through a lot of our interviews and so forth that quality school district, quality teachers. Reason if a lot of newcomers move to the school district, move to the community, or not only a great community but a great school system. So to be able to continue those things, and then the other part of that is, what if it does not pass? We are working on those specific reductions, and we'll have that information out as soon as we possibly can. Again, there's only so many ways that you can do it. It's either got to be teaching staff, support staff, increasing class sizes, decreasing electives, increasing fees. Those are the huge pieces of being able to if the levy doesn't pass, to be able to help with our financial situation, or address our situation without passage of the levy. And to piggyback on that, talking about finances, if I may add a number 3 here, we had the Representative Cup in our district on December 16th to talk about state funding. Again, that was one of the things that, again, hindsight 2020, feedback from the levy is that the state funding model out there, state funding proposal that was being proposed at that time by Representative Cup and Patterson. So we brought Representative Cup into the district. The video is on our website. I talked to Representative Perales today. We're still working on getting those answers to those questions we gave them, those questions that were submitted before winter break, and he promised those back to me as soon as possible, and also the presentation. So I've made contact with Representative Morales multiple times to be able to get that information. But that information is on our website also in the financial section. And just to let you know, so if that proposal passes, if it would have passed last spring with the original, so there's two simulations. There's a simulation from the spring and there's one in the fall that's recent. So the one in the spring, we would have received an additional $693,000 in year one, whatever year one was, and year two, $549,000. Again, they haven't figured out where that money's coming from. So they just, it's a proposal out there, but they don't know where the money's coming from. But they, after feedback from the districts and the school districts, they recalculated and redid some of that formula. So now, if it is ever passed, again, they would like, in a perfect world for them, they want to get passed by the end of this budget, which had just started in July. So it's a biennium budget, so 2 years. So if it passes as it is right now, we would get an additional $162,000 in year one. If you're remembering correctly, that's down from $693,000. And year two, $140,000, that's down from $549,000. So our district received less money from the Patterson proposal. And that's because they based this formula on real estate taxes and also the income level of the community. In the past, it's just been the real estate wealth. So they added in the income level. Well, that doesn't help our community out with this proposal. So I just wanted to give you an update on the Patterson. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For executive session, I need a motion for the purpose of an audit conference conducted by the Auditor of State or independent certified public accounts with officials of the public office that is the subject of the audit, per revised code 121.22, paragraph D2. This is item number 1, discussion with board attorney issues that are the subject of pending or imminent court action, per revised code 121.22, paragraph G3. And finally, and for considering employment and compensation of a licensed public employee per revised code 121.22, paragraph G1. We have a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Franz,
Second.
Mrs. Long.
Mark
I will need to also invite Mark Engel.
and Nicole, I'm sorry, what's your last name? Bent?
Yes.
We also have our regional liaison here.
Okay.
Joe Braden.
Joe
Joe
Braden.
Braden,
And
Tabitha Justice, and Tanya Wilson. Do we have a motion? Did we have a second?
Yes.
Mrs. Long, okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Any other
Miss-
questions? Okay. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Long,
Yes.
Mrs. Sloughman,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter.
Yes.
Mrs. France.
Yes.
At 8:09.
And no action.